David Ottaway is a Middle East fellow with the Wilson Center's Middle East program. He joins us today to talk about, I don't know, we were referring to it as the charm offensive or the state visit, but Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's visit to the United States, the aftermath.
Right.
What was the primary purpose of the trip?
I think the primary purpose was to rebrand the kingdom, rebrand it as a modern, forward-looking, reforming country, and not one in the grips of Islamic extremism and turn backwards. This is a country that it's like the coming out party of the new Saudi Arabia.
Not your grandmother's Saudi Arabian leader. Is the rebranding backed up by actual action at home? In other words, sometimes branding is a PR exercise.
Well, there's certainly the PR exercise, but in fact, in terms of social reform, and particularly for women, or introducing entertainment, it is definitely, it's real. In terms of political reforms, no, there's nothing going on. In terms of economic reforms, things are going on. So it depends which sector of Saudi Arabia you're looking at.
Is this the idea, what you just described, or is this a stage one? In other words, will those other sectors that aren't part of these reforms eventually become part of them?
Political reform, I don't think so. In fact, we're going the other way. We're going more towards a authoritarian, maybe kind of a royal dictatorship. We've never seen power concentrated in one person, one prince, since the founding of the kingdom in 1932. So this is quite extraordinary in terms of domestic, internal Saud politics, power consolidation. And I don't think that's going to reverse.
Is his goal to be sort of a friendly dictator? In other words, is it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
He's a benign dictator. You know, he's finally making the decisions that no other king has been able to do. Sort of putting the religious establishment back in its box and loosening its control over society, over women in particular. And this is real. I mean, I think the most courageous thing is taking on the Islamic, not the Islamic, the Wahhabi establishment of Saudi Arabia, and stripping them of their power, telling them to shut up, and promoting women in areas where the religious establishment has always tried to keep them from going forward.
Will they push back, or is this?
Well, you know, that's everybody's waiting and watching, because the conservative branch of the religious establishment has criticized openly within the past 2 years all the things that are happening now, like movies and music and concerts and even social media. They've been opposed to all of this. But the Crown Prince has arrested some of them and told others to shut up. And if they start speaking out, he either fires them or puts them in jail. So he's on the case.
Yeah.
He knows where the problem's going to come from, if it's going to come.
So, as far as his trip to the U.S., mission accomplished? Did he begin the rebranding?
I would say mission accomplished in some areas and not in others. In terms of attracting investment and the top, the titans of the IT world and the latest things going on in American industry, and yes, I think he's definitely, and also he's looking at investments in the United States. Saudi Arabia has the biggest refinery in the United States, in Port Arthur, Texas. They're talking now about building a petrochemical factory nearby and expanding it to make it even larger. So they're looking at investments here, and they're trying to attract investments over there. In terms of the political issues that are problems between the two countries, the two governments, like the civil war in Yemen, or the Saudi blockade of Qatar, where we have our forward headquarters for all our military operations from Afghanistan to Syria. It's really crucial to us. And the Saudis and their allies now have an air, sea, and land blockade of Qatar, which they accuse of supporting terrorism and also their political enemies, not getting anywhere. In terms of an IPO for Aramco, the state oil company, the largest oil company in the world, they were talking about having the IPO launched here in New York. Now they're thinking more and more of not doing it because they're worried about, because there are the 9/11 families that have lawsuits in New York City, and they don't know whether the risk of having Aramco stock on sale in the stock market in New York could be a problem, could be seized. So on those issues, or on Syria, how do we confront Iran? Do we have a common policy? Now, as we talk now, today, there's talk of the United States, Trump may authorize tax on Syria, which the Saudis would love to see. But just a few days ago, Trump was saying, no, we got to go home. What are we doing there? And we're going to get out in a few months. Well, for the Saudis, that means not standing up to Iran, because for Syria and the President Assad, for Iran, they are very important. And so the Saudis want the Americans to push back there.
The fact that the U.S. didn't, that these issues, all these bones of contention that you listed, that there was no progress or no even real robust discussion. Some have been critical, said that we were just too welcoming and we treated this as almost a celebrity visit. It's like, you know, a British royalty coming to town. Is that fair criticism?
Yeah, I think in a way it was. They handled the PR very well. First of all, he really opened up. He went and saw everybody. And he gave interviews to columnists and magazines, and he didn't wear his traditional robe, which I found very symbolic, because you could actually see the man without his headdress and his robe, and you know, he just looked like an average guy, so he was really playing up to the American audience, and in that way, I think they did make a big PR breakthrough.
And now he's on to Europe.
But now he's on to Europe. As we talk now, he's in France. He spent 3 weeks here. Before he came here, he was in London and in Egypt. So more or less, he's spending a month, or even more than a month, going around.
It's like a Paul McCartney world tour. Is he a transformational leader?
He wants to be. I think socially, he's becoming one. On the economy, he's a bit of a dreamer. Not more than a bit of a dreamer. He has big dreams, but I don't know whether he has the foreign investment, to carry out these dreams. Still open question.
Is that the biggest barrier to his success, foreign investment?
I'd say it's one of them. One of them. I mean, he's got a lot of problems. He's trying to push his country and society forward very fast. But the question is, do they have the manpower, the trained manpower, to carry out this dream, to build new cities, to switch the whole economy from being dependent on oil to be driven by the private sector? You know, can he do this? It's an open question. But he's got the energy, he has the vision and the energy and the will to try and do it. Now, whether he's going to be the Icarus of Saudi Arabia, you know, and get too close to the sun and crash, we don't know.
A final thought about the regional role. Talk about how his vision and his ambition is affecting the region itself and Saudi Arabia's traditional role within the region.
Well, they want to become the leaders of the Arab world. But, you know, first they've got to be able to even create some kind of cohesion and show they can lead the 6 Arab kingdoms of the Persian Gulf. And now they're divided into 2. So the proof of his leadership as a regional, let alone an Arab-wide leader, is still very much up in the air. And I think most people so far have not been impressed at the way he's maneuvered to establish himself as a regional and an Arab leader.
How old is he again?
32.
Yeah, but very young.
Got a long way to go. He's
it's
crown
a big
prince.
project for a young man.
He's probably, you know, will become king, and he'll probably be king for the next half century.
Yeah.
So this is the man the United States is going to be dealing with for the next 50 years.
Well, and we know you'll be tracking it. Maybe not for the full 50 years, but we'll look forward to future discussions. Thank you, David.
My pleasure.